All right. Well, yeah. What's up with the white pride thing?
What's up with the white shy thing? Okay, so basically, you know how I'm white Hispanic, right?
Uh
And
huh.
people give me a. I feel it obligated to support that country and those people and that race that inhabits.
First of all, I don't think there's anything wrong with taking pride in your country or being proud of being American and also caring about Americans. The problem seems to
Yeah.
be that you're assuming that somehow carries with it taking pride in being white and only caring about white Americans. Like there are black people here in America that are Americans. There are Hispanics
Well,
here in America that are Americans. I mean, you yourself are a white Hispanic. You already
mhm.
told me that you were only 15, but we're still interested in having a conversation, primarily because I forget what you even said on your Instagram. You called me like a AOC simp or something, and you called me Cunter Avallone.
I said, I said country Avallone is being unfaithful and simping for ass out of control of AOC.
Oh, right.
So,
Yes, that's what you said. And then I said, why don't we talk? Because, of course, I didn't. I mean, at the time, I didn't even know you were 15. I just saw somebody calling me out. And I always
yeah.
say, let's talk. And then, yeah, you said you were 15, you wanted to talk. And you also call yourself the traditionalist. I have your Instagram here showing on my screen.
Oh,
Hopefully, that's okay.
where did I ever pick that I was like, every. Then I realized, though. Yeah,
Well, your
so.
your thing says Christ, white pride, family tradition. And your username is, Xavier the traditionalist. So,
Yeah,
okay.
that makes sense.
So do you want
Yeah.
to go through? Because I want to talk about
Well,
the AOC stuff, and we should definitely talk about the white pride thing a little bit, and then maybe tradition or Christ or really any of these things.
well, first we should really talk about the AOC thing since we both agreed to that in like Discord DMs. So
Okay, yeah,
yeah,
let's start with that, but I still want to talk to you about the other subjects too, if that's cool.
for sure. Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, I have my
Uh,
notes up here. I'm not gonna just like say, haha, you're 15, and then ignore what you're saying. I'm gonna listen to what you're saying here, and hopefully I can kind of change your mind on some stuff. So go for it.
talk.
How do you feel about the
I've
AOC
seen
thing? Why am I a
seen you
simp?
talk. I've seen you talk to other 15-year-olds, so I don't know. I didn't think this was going to be much of a problem either way. Anyways, with the AOC thing, I wouldn't really. Um, while it may have been sexual harassment, I think the way it was conveyed, it was more of a joking sort of like undertone. I can sort of agree that maybe joking in a sexual way could be categorized as sexual harassment,
Uh huh.
but I simply don't think it was serious enough. I think there is sexual harassments where it's serious, and there's sexual harassments where it's like a joking way, but it's still sexual harassment because of like the sexual undertones.
So
So
you're acknowledging then that it was sexual harassment. Your argument
yes,
is
but
that it was simply not really that bad sexual
yeah,
harassment.
I don't really understand your point because, like, when you were
Big
making
booty.
that post, it kind of seemed like you were being like serious, like, oh, this is bad, oh,
Well, let me go ahead and play the
this.
clip here real quick, just for the viewers, because they're going to be curious about this thing too. I've been talking about this AOC thing now for a while. This is the video in question for anybody that's curious. This is only going to be 20 seconds. Hold on.
See, my favorite big booty Latina. I love you, AOC. You're my favorite. She wants to kill babies, but she's still beautiful. You look very beautiful in that dress. You look very sexy. Look at that booty on AOC. That's my favorite big booty Latina.
Want to do a little selfie?
I love it. My favorite AOC. Nice to meet you, AOC. Look how sexy she looks in that dress. Woo, I love it, AOC. Hot, hot, hot like a tamale. See, my
All right.
favorite.
So I just played the clip for the stream, but I know that you already know what the clip is.
Yeah,
I don't understand why it's relevant to say that it wasn't quote unquote that bad. I mean, whether or not it was that bad is kind of going to be subjective to begin with, but based on how
yeah,
we define sexual harassment, I think that this is without question sexual harassment.
yeah. I agree,
So
but
are you being unfaithful right now and simping for AOC?
I don't have a wife though. You have a wife though. I don't
Okay,
have
so
a
are you
real.
simping for AOC though?
Am I simping for AOC? No, I'm not simping for her because I'm not taking it that seriously. Acknowledging it's like a sexual harassment, but not taking it seriously, it's not really simping.
Well, do you think that you need to? Do you think that it's necessarily simping to like say that sexual harassment is bad? Because I mean, well, maybe you don't, but generally speaking, I'm not like a very big AOC fan. I don't really follow her. I'm not really too familiar with what she's doing right now in government. All I know is that this went viral and a bunch of conservatives were excited about it. But I mean, it's a pretty clear-cut case of sexual harassment. So, I mean, I get pretty passionate and angry about a lot of the topics I talk to. So when I said that anybody that thinks this is funny or is more mad about AOC joking about punching him, then they're more mad about that than they are about this dude sexually harassing her as a subhuman degenerate that belongs in a zoo or something like that. That's true for the most part.
Yeah, the reason why I think it's sexual harassment, I kind of dislike. I sort of find it as a joking way, but I don't dislike the idea because I'm a traditionalist. I'm supposed to dislike the idea of it because yeah. So in another sense, I can kind of understand your point, but I still err on the side that it was sort of a joke.
But the
It
joke is
wasn't.
irrelevant.
Well, I think it would be relevant to the context of it. So
No, it's.
it's
Would you be
serious.
comfortable if somebody said these things to your mother?
Not really, but
Okay, wait, but
AOC's
then what if they said, "Hey, it was just a joke"?
AOC's
Would you then just like cease to be upset?
AOC's husband was there. Did he do anything at all? Hell no.
I don't know if AOC's husband was actually there. The dude she was with looked like an older guy to me, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I thought he was holding a cane. Maybe. Oh, is that a dog leash actually? Okay, my bad. Okay, so whether or not the husband said anything is again irrelevant. If somebody said these things to your mother in front of you, and they said, "Hey, damn girl, you got a fat ass. You're my favorite big booty white woman over here," and then you
She's
were
actually
understandably upset, and then they said, "Hey, it was just a joke, bro." You're telling me
my
that you
mom.
just wouldn't be upset anymore?
My mom's actually Latina, so it's actually funny. So that it would still fit the same kind. Anyways,
That is
I
funny,
would
but
probably,
you're telling me that
I
you
would,
wouldn't be upset if somebody said it was just a joke.
I would probably still be offended, because it's personal. It's serious for me because it's a personal thing. It's like my mom getting
Yeah,
harassed.
but that's the thing is
Yeah.
that's why it's important to ask you that hypothetical because as soon as you realize that it's somebody you care about, then you are completely willing to acknowledge that this is in fact sexual harassment. It's
I
still
already
sexual
acknow-
harassment and it's still bad against AOC even if you don't like AOC.
Yeah. I already acknowledged it was sexual harassment, though, but
But you were saying it's like
uh,
wasn't that bad sexual harassment because it was pretty much a joke. And I'm trying to explain to you why whether or not it's a joke is completely irrelevant.
it would depend if my friends said it truly, because I would ask, "Hey, dude, is that a joke?" Because, uh, you know, they don't do that, but if they do that, I'm probably gonna ask, "Hey, are you joking? Are you joking?" If they said no, then I'd probably just do whatever. So, yeah, it has to depend if it's like someone close to me doing it. So,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
it doesn't. If you were walking
Well,
down a street and there were a
oh,
random bunch of construction workers who all started
yeah,
telling your mom or your sister or both that she had a fat ass and they were whistling, then you would
yeah.
not stop and say, "Hey man, are you just horsing around over here?" No. You would
I
obviously take what they're saying seriously, and you would most likely be offended, rightfully so. So if you're able to
yeah.
recognize that that is bad sexual harassment, and you're also able to recognize that even if one of those guys did say, "Hey bro, chill, it's just a prank, bro," you would still be upset by it. Why does this matter? Why do you keep bringing up the fact that he was joking when it came to catcalling AOC? It's still sexual harassment.
Wait, can you say that again, sir?
If you're willing to acknowledge that whether or not somebody sexually harasses your mom or your sister,
Hmm.
whether or not that is a joke,
Yeah.
that is irrelevant to the fact that it is in fact sexual harassment. So why are you then bringing up the fact that this Alex Stein guy was just quote unquote joking? This has no weight here. It doesn't matter.
Uh, I I figured that the joking probably had some weight in the fact that AOC sort of leaned in and sort of did the peace sign also, added
Why
some
does
weight
that
to
matter,
it.
though? This is why I and I'm not trying to be like rude and cut you off constantly, but like it doesn't matter if she leans in for a selfie. Was it sexual harassment or was it not? If you're saying it is sexual harassment, then sexual harassment is by definition a bad thing.
Yeah.
You can't just say like, "Oh, well, she leaned in, so it wasn't that bad sexual harassment." Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Wait, can you say that again? Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I'm sort of thinking,
No, 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 it's
So,
fine. It's fine. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to go, like start yelling or anything either. It just doesn't make sense that you would try to say, well, it's sexual harassment, but it's not that bad of sexual harassment, because that's irrelevant. We're not talking about whether or not the sexual harassment was the worst type imaginable. It's sexual harassment all the same, and that is a bad thing.
so what you're saying is basically all sexual harassment should be considered the same. Should be like considered in the same lens, basically.
I mean, that is how it is. That's why we have different definitions for sexual harassment, sexual assault, and then rape. And so we have different definitions already for these things. Sexual harassment is simply making unwanted comments about another person's body or telling them sexual remarks when they are uncomfortable with it and continuing to do so. That is sexual
What if
harassment.
what if you don't know you're uncomfortable? So, like, what if you don't? Sorry, what if you don't know that the person you're sexually harassing is uncomfortable? What's the
You should
like? What's
always
the
assume that the person you're sexually harassing will be made uncomfortable by your remarks. It's also not
oh,
required that they are even uncomfortable. Usually that is what happens. It's something that makes them uncomfortable or can be insulting or can be degrading. So again, treating AOC like she's nothing but a sex object and screaming about the fact that she has a big booty, that is degrading. So she doesn't even have to be uncomfortable by it, but it still fits the definition of sexual harassment. Just being made uncomfortable is one of the factors that can be taken into consideration.
right, right. Mm, huh. Are you gonna say anything else, or
I want
say?
to know what you think about this. I mean, it sounds like you're acknowledging that this is in fact sexual harassment, and it also seems as though you're aware that that's not a good thing. So I don't know why you would feel the need to, I don't know, like it feels as if your entire point is no longer really there. And in that case, it's fine. Like if you want to just say, okay, it's sexual harassment, it's bad, let's move on, then I'm down with that. But that didn't seem like it was your original position. That's all.
Yeah, okay, I can sort of understand your point. Obviously, my original position after doing some kind of research, I sort of,
Your original position was
changed.
what? Sorry.
My original position was that it wasn't a big deal and it wasn't sexual harassment, but I kind of agreed it was sexual harassment. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, if you're
So,
able to recognize then that this is in fact sexual harassment, and you'd clearly be uncomfortable if somebody said these things to your mother or your sister, or I mean, hypothetically, if you had a girlfriend, that would probably make you pretty upset too. Then yeah, you're able to recognize then that is sexual harassment, and that's really the only thing. That's everything else is irrelevant. So I'm glad that you're able to acknowledge though that it was in fact sexual harassment for sure. I think
yeah,
that's pretty good. So props.
I guess it would be sexual harassment, like, No, yeah. Yeah, I already agreed it was sexual harassment. I think it should maybe probably be taken seriously, so
Yeah,
I
and
think,
keep in mind too that like what I'm saying as far as taking it seriously, I'm not saying that Alex Stein should go to jail. I'm not saying that like
yeah,
the police should have tased him or something insane. It's based on my understanding that just harassment in public,
I
especially
think
if
that,
it's only happening like once or twice, isn't a crime. I think it would be repeated harassment and stalking that would start to get into legal territory.
I
So, I
think
mean,
the
taking it seriously just means recognizing what it is and calling it as it is and condemning it as being a bad thing.
I think the Capitol Police could have like reprimanded him, not arrested him, but like reprimanded him and like perceive. Then again, they may have not perceived him as a threat though. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
But
know if it would be necessary for the police to have involved.
yeah,
I think if he started following her and it was getting into, like if he looked like he was being a threat towards her specifically, I think that would have been far more realistic
yeah.
for the police to move in then. But either way, props to you, man, for being able to acknowledge that it was actually sexual harassment. That's cool. I'm glad to hear it. Do you want to talk a little bit about why you have white pride in your bio?
Well, you know how I'm a white Hispanic, right?
Oh, wait, somebody in chat's also asking if you take back when you called me a simp.
Do I take back when I called you a simp?
Because it sounds like you completely agree with my position and everything I've said, so by your standards, you would then be a simp also.
I mean, I think I was sort of like in the heat of the moment and like, sort of like, said wanted to make a funny comment, so I
That's
don't know
fine.
if that's really simpish, so I guess maybe it's not simpish, I don't know.
Okay. I mean, yeah, you can still think that I'm cunt or Avallone, but, just don't call me the simp, okay?
Okay.
All right, well, yeah, what's up with the white pride thing?
What's up with the white pride thing? Okay, so basically you know how I'm white Hispanic, right? And
Uh-huh.
people give me a hard time about that, right?
Okay.
Basically, the thing is, I'm mostly European descent, probably like 75% around that, plus the Hispanic thing, most likely. So, yeah, I personally believe as a European, I mean, as a man living as a kid living in the United States with European descent, I feel it obligated to support that country and those people and that race that inhabits Europe. I feel obligated to support the people who built that.
Which built the U.S.?
Yeah, which are white people. Sure, you could say black people built the U.S. because of like slavery, but still, though, white people still kind of laid the framework and the groundwork for the United States and Europe in general. So that's why sort of I'm a white advocate. You could say, but like
Okay.
I'm still like white pride. So yeah.
Well, the thing is what you said to me sounds like, first of all, I don't think there's anything wrong with taking pride in your country or being proud of being American and also caring about Americans. The problem seems to be that you're assuming that somehow carries with it taking pride in being white and only caring about white Americans. Like there are black people here in America that are Americans. There are Hispanics here in America that are Americans. I mean, you yourself are a white Hispanic. So
Yeah.
why does caring about America or the people in America mean caring only about white people?
Well, caring only about white people because you know that a majority of people here are white, like probably like 64% or like so, and also they kind of were the founding stock of America. Like
But that doesn't
they
matter.
through the Mayflower landed and like sort of said hey or
Well,
something.
who cares? I
That
mean,
that
at that time, like, there were, I mean, if they came from Europe, yeah, there were probably more white people just to begin with, just because of the circumstances. And then they had black people here who were enslaved and seen as lesser than. It's not surprising to me that the beginning founding stock of America, when it comes to the actual physical buildings and whatnot, and the, like, creation of the laws, would be done by white people. That was how the circumstances were at the time. But I don't think you're able to fairly take that and say, well, because black people were
well,
enslaved and didn't help with writing the laws in America at first, that means that this country is supposed to be for white people, or we only care about white people in this country. This is like
when you
pretty much blatant white nationalism.
you have the laws created by a certain type of people, you're gonna have to expect that certain type of people to make the laws strictly about themselves and
But they
about
didn't.
their
That's part of what made America
actual.
better, is that the laws were then later used and changed and reformed to make sure that black people were seen as human, to make sure that segregation was no longer allowed.
Read the Naturalization Act of 1790. Okay.
Has it been done away with?
I don't know if it's been done away with. I haven't checked too much. Has it been done away with? Hold on a second.
Wasn't it done away with by the 1965 Immigration Act? Or was this a different one?
Wait, hold on a second. 1790. I'm searching it up.
Naturalization Act? Is that what you said?
Yeah, Naturalization Act. Hold on a second. Oh, major amendments. There was a Naturalization Act of 1795.
That set the first uniform rules for the granting of United States citizenship by naturalization. It limited access to U.S. citizenship to white immigrants. Yeah, so this is also what I mean with it being unfair. This was done away with, by the way, with the Immigration Act of 1965. They got rid of it being based on ethnicity and instead based it on skill and ability. which, mind you, at the time, virtually everybody in America was in favor of, both the citizens and the government and Congress and whatnot. So this is, I don't know what the point of this is. Like, yes, at one point America was pretty racist and saw black people as being subhuman and didn't want black people to be in the country, so they had laws that said black people can't come to the country. Yeah, of course. But this is undermining the point you made before, that this was built by white people. The reason this country was built largely by white people at first was not because white people were somehow extra skilled and talented. It was because they were literally restricting brown people from entering the country. When brown people did come into the country, they were slaves. There was no option besides white people building the country.
Yeah. Sort of with the black, how do I put this in a good way? Can you repeat that again? Sorry, I'm trying to think, but
No, it's fine. I'm not trying to overwhelm you either, or like steamroll you. But
yeah.
When you bring up these naturalization acts here, what you're showing is that the reason this country originally was, quote unquote, built by white people was not because of any innate or intrinsic skill that white people had. It was simply because there were laws in place that did not allow black people to enter the country, or if they were here, they were slaves. So there was no way for black people to actually contribute to the starting of this country.
I mean, they kind of did because, they sort of, did the, slave work. But that's a whole different topic for a whole different time. I'm talking about that.
Well, they may have built, like, physical buildings and whatnot, but actually the starting of America, the writing of the laws, the reason that was primarily done by white people was because, again, black people were not given those same privileges in society. This is like if I had a bunch of friends, and my group of friends that likes chocolate ice cream, I say, you're not allowed to come into the basement, okay? And then the group of friends that like vanilla ice cream, I say, you can come into my basement, and then whoever finds the hidden toy first, they win. Inevitably, the people that like vanilla ice cream are going to find the toy, because the people that like chocolate ice cream aren't allowed to even enter the country. Or enter my basement. I couldn't then walk away and say, clearly this demonstrates that people that like vanilla ice cream are just superior to people that like chocolate ice cream. Did I lose you? You there?
Oh, hello. Sorry.
It's okay.
Oh, sorry. I sort of disconnected since I'm on a, Chromebook or something. So
that's fine. Did you hear what I said?
No, I didn't hear what you said. You sort of cut out and was like, hello. I was confused.
Gotcha.
Then I realized connection. So
well, I'll give the same example, but even quicker this time. If you have a group of friends that likes chocolate ice cream and another group of friends that likes vanilla ice cream, and you've hidden some kind of a toy in your basement, and then you say, everybody that likes vanilla ice cream, I want you to go downstairs in the basement and find the toy, and everybody that likes chocolate ice cream, they are not allowed to go into the basement. And then when inevitably the group of people that like vanilla ice cream find the toy, I cannot then walk away and say, this demonstrates that people that like vanilla ice cream are superior, because the people that like chocolate ice cream weren't even allowed to participate.
Can I also say something about that hypothetical? What if those vanilla ice cream people started building the basement and started making it a nice, clean thing, started, tidying up the basement, but then you find out that those people who like brown ice cream wouldn't have done it. What do you think then?
I don't know how you would go about just finding out that they wouldn't have done something. That's like a post hoc rationalization at that point.
Let's actually say maybe those brown ice cream people find another basement and they actually dirty it all up, dirty it all up and just start going into the basement with the white ice cream, because one of the white ice cream people say, hey, you can come in here, and they start dirtying the white ice cream up, which is what America is now. What do you think now?
Well, no, what this would be is if we had a bunch of people that liked vanilla ice cream going downstairs, and then they started fixing up the basement and redesigned it to look super nice, you could then say, Yes, the people that liked the vanilla ice cream, they fixed up the basement. They made the basement really nice. But so what? That doesn't mean that the basement is only for people that like vanilla ice cream. Because again, people that like chocolate ice cream weren't allowed to even be in the basement to begin with. There was no fair comparison. There was no real assessment done. So it would be completely ridiculous, and not even just in the slightest way, to then say, because people that like vanilla ice cream built the basement, that means it's only for people that likes vanilla ice cream.
No, you was sort of missing some parts of my point. Okay, so basically, one day the vanilla ice cream person would say, "Hey, chocolate ice cream people, you can come now. You can come," and like the chocolate ice cream people sort of came and sort of messed the stuff up.
I mean,
Sort of.
so you're losing me on the analogy at this point, because I don't know how black people, when allowed into the country, quote unquote, messed stuff up. They were first brought here as slaves, so their labor was used to build America even stronger, and then they were freed. And I don't think that black people messed up anything then. And if they did struggle with certain issues or have problems with inequality or crime, a lot of that could be attributed to the fact that they had been discriminated against for so long. They still did not have equal footing in the country.
Don't you think that still technically, destroys your entire point? Because chocolate ice cream people would still be in the vanilla ice cream place, but maybe they would be like, servants or something. You're saying that they wouldn't be allowed there, and there wouldn't be any chocolate ice cream loving people in the white ice cream loving, basement. That completely destroys your
No,
and
no,
that
no, not
analogy.
no, not at all. This is analogous to the country. The country was built primarily by white people. Yes, that's true. But however, you cannot walk away from that and say, this means that white people built America for white people, or that this was anything to attribute to something intrinsic about white people. It was simply that because we had certain restrictions, that it was inevitable that white people were going to build this country. Then slaves were brought here, and then afterwards, slaves were set free. If black people from that point on went on to cause further issues, this is not a fault of black people. This would be a fault of the white people. Because you cannot simultaneously say, white people built the country and give all the credit to the white people, and then white people also enslaved the black people. And then when black people were freed and they caused problems because the system wasn't accommodating them because they'd been discriminated against for so long, you can't then say that's the fault of the black people. That too would then have to be the fault of the white people.
How would that be the fault of the white people? It's the black people who are physically doing it, though.
Because the reason that what do you mean? First of all, like I want to know what you're comparing this to. Are you talking about like the fact that like blacks nowadays have a higher crime rate?
I'm not like a suggestion anything. I was sort of like suggesting stuff from your point of view. I wasn't suggesting anything implicit. So
I mean, I don't think that black people, when freed from slavery, started like messing up the country. We would have to see an exact example as to what they did that you think was messing up the country, and how that resulted in some kind of a problem in the country. There was segregation for a really long time after they were freed from slavery. There were Jim Crow laws, there was the drug war, there were a lot of other things put in place, largely by white people, that put black people in a circumstance that you might even see black people acting a certain way, but the reason they are acting that certain way is because of the environment that was built by white people that fucked them over. This is why when people bring up 1350 and they say, look at how many black people commit crime, LOL, yeah, because for a long time we had policies that forced black people into poverty, and if you're poor, you're more likely to commit crime. This isn't an intrinsic fault of black people. This is a failure of the actual policies that were put in place.
Which is why I actually like to have the idea of more funding to black communities, so you can make them more rich, which will stop the crimes, so I'm pro funding for black communities, so.
Yeah, but I don't understand why you're saying white pride. Like, you're attributing the success of this nation to white people when this had nothing to do with white people.
Yeah, because they founded it, though.
Okay, do you think that the people that founded this country do you think that they had these good ideas as far as liberty and equality, right? Do you think that they had those ideas because they were white? Or do you think that it just so happened that they were white people who also came up with new ideas?
Both.
So you think they had those ideas because they were white?
I believe that I believe because of the environmental and cultural circumstances, white people, especially European people, have more of especially at that time, had more of a spirited, mind. I'm not saying that black people are stupid at anything. I'm not trying to say that they're dumb, but still, though.
I don't think that's
I
even
think
true, right? Because, I mean, didn't you bring up the Mayflower and the Pilgrims? They literally left Europe, a more white area, because they didn't agree with the fact that they were forced to worship at a specific church, and there was the control between the Church of England, and they didn't like that. So I don't even think you could attribute this to well, a lot of white people actually had similar culture and a monolith. And even if that were the case, again, that's not because they have white skin.
I mean, yeah,
You recognize that it's not
guess.
because they're white, right? Like if I take somebody who is a white person and I put them in a room and then they so happen to come up with an idea, they did not come up with this idea because they are white. That's not the causal reason.
If they were in a certain environment which caused them to be more of a whiter skin, because Europe, caused you to be more white, and Africa caused you to be more darker. So
wait, of course, yeah, no. They're in an environment in which it makes sense why species would have evolved to have certain skin color. Yes, but it's not because they have evolved into having a white skin color that they then have better ideas or superior ideas to anyone else. That is not attributed to the white skin. It might just so happen that somebody who has white skin came up with a good idea. The reason they came up with that good idea was not because they have white skin. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess. Wait, can you repeat that to me again? I'm sort of. So yeah, I'm telling you to repeat again. I'm sort of
no, it's fine. I appreciate it because I can tell that you're trying to understand what I'm saying. It's that if you have a bunch of white people that start a society and they set up rules, like setting up the way that we recognize the American Democratic Republic that we live in nowadays, that is not because they have white skin. They didn't think of that or have these good ideas just because they're white, bruh. They had those ideas because of their environment, because of the way they were raised, because of the experiences that they had, because they didn't want to create a society that was similar to England, the whole 9 yards, right? This wasn't because they were white. It just so happened that they were white and then also came up with good ideas.
Why did European people come up with good ideas and African people didn't come up with good ideas? What do you think about that, bucko?
I think the reason for that is because of, again, the environment. You can look at the way that Europe was. It was far more developed at the time. If you're living in a more developed society, then you're more likely to make strides in intellect as well. But again, that's not because white people. That can even be attributed to the climate. Because it is so much hotter in Africa, because there lack resources in Africa that we don't lack in other European areas, then that too plays a role. That's what I mean, is this isn't about skin color. And I don't know if you realize this, but if you're going to try and attribute it to skin color, the only way you could do that is if you actually believe that white people are intrinsically smarter than black people. You're going down a race realist approach.
I mean, I'm not trying to suggest anything, but I'm not trying to get in trouble, but
You're not going to get in trouble. Say whatever you want, as long as it's not a slur or something.
No, because, no one knows, Anyways, but, wait, can you repeat that to me again? So we were sort of talking, and I forgot my train of thought.
Yeah, if your argument is that because white people came up with these good ideas in America, if you're going to attribute that to the fact that they are white, that necessarily carries with it that because you have white skin color, you must have superior intellect as well, which is why I'm saying you're going towards a race realist position, which argues that black people biologically have lower IQ and are biologically lesser than white people?
I think people in colder climates have a is more smarter than people in hotter climates. Yes or no?
Do I think that people what?
Or in colder climates are necessarily smarter than those of hot climates. I'm not trying to say anything. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna hear your point of view.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't think that it has like a significant impact there. Again, it goes back to resources, the access of. Somebody in chat is also correcting me and saying nothing to do with heat. Africa also has natural resources in abundance. It has everything to do with the continent's interior being virtually hard to navigate. So there are problems with that as well. But that's what I mean is there are issues here. This isn't a one-to-one comparison at all. And attributing it to white people, black people, is pretty silly. Because there are a lot of black people that are very smart and have come up with a lot of very good ideas. And we are, to this very day, benefiting from what black people and other minority groups have contributed to this country. So if you think that America was built by white people, you would be correct. The beginning of America was definitely started by white people. But if you're going to say the reason America is successful is because those people were white, then you have a problem because you are attributing the success to the skin color rather than the fact that these were people who had a good idea and they happened to be white.
So,
I mean, do you think that black people are biologically less intelligent than white people?
I personally don't know. I've heard that being suggested to me a lot. I don't know if I buy it or not. I just don't. I'm not sure. I don't know if I'm really a racialist. Yeah, I just have white pride in my bio because yeah.
But then how would it make sense that America was successful because of people being white? Wouldn't you have to agree that there's some biological component to being white that includes higher IQ, better intellect?
I believe each race has better qualities or worse qualities than other races. I'm not trying to.
Yeah, but again, is that because of their race?
Is that because of their race? Well, it could be a factory of things, but maybe it could be of their race. I'm not too sure. I would assume.
But you would have. But again, this is why you keep going back to it. Either is because of environmental factors, like external reasons, right? Or it is a biological thing. Those are really the only realistic two options. And it sounds like you're saying you're not really a race realist, which is good because that's not a good position to take, and it also is heavily debunked. However, if it's not because white people are biologically superior to black people, then the answer must be environmental factors, which means that there's nothing to do here with them being white or anything to do with them being black. It has everything to do with the environment and the way in which we set up people's circumstances. And mind you, when I say environment, I'm not talking about like the weather. I mean like your social environment.
Okay. Yeah, like you mean the culture is something?
Yeah, so for example, people talk about like Jews they tend to be really hard workers, and there is a culture within Jewish communities that really encourages hard work and encourages going out and being able to stand on your own and being independent. This isn't because they're Jewish that they're like more hard workers. It's because they're Jewish, and that carries with it a culture that they have immersed themselves in that also encourages more independent work and whatnot.
I have a paleo-conservative Hispanic friend who's like sort of supported the environmental idea because the problem with he supported the environmental idea. I think it's because he doesn't want to be with the dirty wig nasty something. I don't know.
Right. So yeah, I mean it just doesn't make sense to attribute the success of America to white people.
I guess you somewhat have a point. I can see your reasoning and your logic.
Yeah, so I mean, why then what's the deal with the white pride thing then? Like what's the point of it? Why have it advertised that you are proud to be white if the whole reason is, well, because white people started America even though that was not because they were in fact white. Why wouldn't you just say American pride?
I don't know though, cause yeah, I don't. I'm not too sure. So, like the thing with the American pride is, I'm not too sure though, cause like, and I'm not too sure, cause yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's no. I understand that there is a lot to think about, and I'm not. It's up to you to go with this where you do. But I would just say that yeah, there's really just no reason to take pride in being white if your reasons for being proud to be white are actually just almost coincidental. They're not. They're not because they are white. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, did you want to talk about anything else? Tradition or Christ, you say as well?
Uh, Christ. I mean, for Christ, I think you're agnostic, right?
Agnostic atheist, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if I could really convert you to that, level of thinking, because I would, I'm not that well indulged in theology, I still need to repair my own life, so
Yeah, no, that's
I,
fine. Well, why don't we talk a little
I
bit about
can't really,
tradition then?
sure, tradition.
What do you
Thing
mean
about
by
tradition.
this when you say tradition? I'm assuming you're talking about the return to tradition.
Hey, can you hold up a second? I'm going to search one thing up, and I'm going to get back to you with the definition.
Okay. Yeah. Do you want me to call you back, or do you need just like a 10 seconds or so?
No, you can stay here. Can you give me a few seconds or
Yeah, sure.
something?
Yeah. I'm gonna mute myself real quick just so that I can read a super chat.
Okay.
Hey, Sam was here. Thank you so much for the $10 donation, my friend. I love you so much. The idea that Africa or South Africa wasn't developed before colonialism is a myth. They were developed, just not in the same ways that Europe was. They had societies, culture, governments, etc. Not surprising at all. I definitely need to get a source on that, though, for future arguments like this one. Absolutely. But thank you very much for that donation. Thanks for supporting the stream as well. All right, you just let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, so basically the definition of tradition is, so basically this is from Google, right? This might not be the actual one. The transmission of customs or beliefs from generation to generation, the fact of being passed on it in this way. Another definition is a long-established custom or belief that has been passed on from one generation to another. So basically that's what I sort of mean by tradition.
Okay, so something passed on throughout generations or something.
Yeah, many things actually.
Okay,
In
but
my
the
case.
problem is that there are definitely certain traditions that are good and that it's good to pass down. But this sort of obsession that I see a lot of nationalists have about tradition being good just because it's tradition is sort of where you lose me. Does that
Well,
make sense?
I don't think it's good for being just because it's being tradition. I think it's good because it's better than the progress that we're having right now.
I think it would just fully depend. I don't think we can just say tradition better than progress. I think it would have to depend. What element of tradition is better, in your opinion, than progress?
I guess you're probably right. Personally, I want tradition. I personally want stuff passed down from all areas. I don't think a particular area is like the correct area because all areas has had their faults and their strengths. So
Yeah,
I'm
and
not
there's a lot
one of
of. I mean, even traditions can vary. Like, have you ever thought about how maybe in the next 50, 60, 70 years it could be a something that was more traditional, quote unquote, to I don't know, reaffirm trans people, to affirm gender identity. Like that could become a tradition if it becomes solidified enough and it keeps on going through generation to generation. That
it
I would
depends
say would
if
be a good tradition.
some like 2080 conservative says, "Oh, I'm a traditionalist. I love trans assignment or something." Yeah, so
I mean, that could hypothetically become tradition, right?
Yeah, kind of. So it all depends, really. It, like, varies. So I guess when I mean tradition, I mean like some traditions. I don't mean all traditions. I mean like some traditions because I like some traditions more than the current. I guess that's happening
Yeah.
because
Well, what's one element of tradition that if you could, that you would just bring things back to? Like, what part of tradition would you return?
the gender. Yeah, the gender rules probably mostly because obviously I'm not too well educated on like gender in general. You probably is so educated more than me on gender, so mostly the gender rules I would say. But I'm not educated on that too much.
Yeah,
Not
well, I'm not, and yeah, I mean, it's not. We don't even have to get into like a whole big thing about gender. It's just, do you ever feel like maybe this desire to return tradition is more or less about returning something that you're more comfortable with, even
yeah.
purely because you're just more familiar with it?
I think it's something you. I think it's actually both. I think it's something you're more familiar with, and something you've shown yourself to be actually be more comfortable with, both in like feeling and looking into it. Basically, I think it can be actually both factors if that makes sense.
So, do you think it's part of tradition, like it would be traditionally feminine for women to wear like certain shirts, maybe like tight jeans, skinny jeans, kind of stuff like that? Like, would that be, in your mind, starting to become more of like a traditional view of somebody expressing themselves as a woman?
I mean, it would certainly be starting to get there since like women nowadays don't wear a lot, but it's certainly getting somewhere to the point. I would say. So
Right,
yes,
but see, what I mean by that is that only back in the 60s, women were not really allowed to wear pants. People called it degenerate. They said that it was breaking away from tradition. It was a violation of God's law or something or another. Women would even get kicked out of restaurants for walking into a restaurant wearing trousers. And so
Yeah,
that
even
was people trying to cling to tradition, which didn't make any sense. And now things have moved on, progress has happened, and now you're willing to admit that, well, it's pretty feminine for a woman to wear skinny jeans or something. That might be more of a traditional feminine appearance. That's changed
because
because of progress.
that's because nowadays women wear bikinis and stuff, so that seems more of like a return to like traditional sort of things. But obviously, just as you're returning to the real traditional sort of things. So
But not
yeah,
necessarily. I mean, it doesn't. That's what I mean, though, is it can culturally change. What is and isn't perceived as being traditional really hinges upon which era you happen to be born into. So if you were born 100 years from now, then it would be very common and maybe quote unquote traditional for there to exist trans people and non binary people and men and women.
I think trans people have existed through history. I would say.
Right, but I mean more prevalent now.
Yeah, it's more accepted nowadays.
Yeah. So do you feel like that could become a form of tradition?
Yeah, I mean, if you that could definitely become a form of tradition if you want to think like that certain way, then yeah, it could be somewhat of a form of tradition.
Yeah, because if it lasts a long enough time and has continued to exist among society for a long time, it would then become tradition. But the problem is also that I don't.
That's
Again, we
why.
don't need to get into this super hardcore, but like generally speaking, gender transition and having trans people live a life freely where their gender is affirmed and they're respected leads to a better world. That makes the world a better place, and it greatly benefits virtually everybody in the country. So why would we then want to oppose that for the sake of tradition when
You
the opposition of it, or excuse me, the acceptance of it, could actually make that a part of tradition and also better the world?
Wait, you said something about the trans people. Can you like send me the a source that proves that trans people, being that way would better the world?
Better the world or better themselves?
Better the world and themselves, or
Well, I have
either
one on
one.
how it betters themselves. I don't have one on how it betters the world. The way in which that it
Okay.
betters themselves, though, is, and I'll send you my source right here, is because of lower suicide rates. Having a more accepting society, that betters everybody. We right now live in a capitalist society. The more people that are in this country to either consume or work, betters the country because it betters the economy, which benefits everybody. Trans people disproportionately killing themselves at massive rates is not beneficial to anybody. I don't want to live in a society where people are killing themselves frequently because they're not accepted. Because how long is it going to be until maybe a part of my identity is no longer accepted? Does that now mean that I am breaking from tradition and now I'm going to be treated badly? I don't want to live in a world like that.
I don't think you're going to be treated badly since you're a straight white man, but you may be too pansexual. I don't know if they'll do anything, but nah, I'm kidding. But like, I don't know if they would do anything to you really.
Well,
So,
I'm just
I
saying
think
hypothetically. I don't want that to be a thing. Like, there's such a thing as religious identity, for example. I don't think you would want to live in a world in which identifying as a Christian comes with it massive amounts of social stigma to the point that you're called degenerate or abhorrent or not really God's will. You're breaking away from nature. That kind of shit does nothing but make the world a worse place.
I actually fear for that's going to become a norm in like the next 20 years. I'm actually scared about that.
Well, there's
I mean,
also a
but
little
that,
bit of a caveat there, too, because, of course, religion can change, where gender identity is much more of an intrinsic part of you. But still, I don't want the possibility of a society in which I could be discriminated against for certain identities, or where you could be discriminated against for certain identities. Of course, there are going to be some identities that might cause you a little bit of issues if you say you identify as a white nationalist, say. But again, those are beliefs that can be changed. They're not really quite the same as having a intrinsic identity the same way.
yeah, I'm not a white nationalist. The thing with white nationalism, and I disagree with, is like you want everyone to be white. No, I don't want everyone to be white. I like some change, like because I'm white Hispanic. I don't want me to be killed just because. Hey, we need everyone to be white. I support maybe a white majority, I guess, but
So
that's
in
sort
my
of like the.
well, in my mind, that would make you a white nationalist because you want the majority of the nation to remain white.
Wouldn't that make me a white majoritarian though?
I don't listen. The paleo conservative types invent new labels every day because white nationalist is optically bad. But you're positing white nationalist talking points right now.
I guess maybe if that's considered white nationalist, then maybe you probably could call me a white nationalist. I really don't think
Yeah,
you.
but
I don't.
this is pivoting a little bit now from the trans stuff, and I'm okay with that though. But like, why do you want the country to be majority white then?
Why do I want the country to be majority white? Why don't I want the country to be majority? Why don't you want? I'm actually asking you a question. Why don't you want the country to be majority white?
Because in
What's
order to enforce that, it would make the world a far worse place. One, we would have to either kick out people who are not white or restrict people from entering the country that would otherwise benefit our country significantly, especially economically, solely on the basis of their race. There's also no evidence that there's anything intrinsically better about white people than black people. So we are literally harming the ability for our country to grow. We're harming the ability for new ideas to be brought forward. We're harming the ability for our economy to grow even larger because black people scare us. That's why. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It does nothing but make the world a worse place. And again, I don't want to live in a society in which maybe one day they decide that I'm not white enough. Now I need to get kicked out. Now I'm going to be deported. How do you control the population? There are so many issues with that there. But I mean, again, you're the one advocating for the country to be majority white. So the burden of proof is more or less on you.
Okay. So basically, I think you said on one of your videos, like maybe on one of your debates, that diversity inherently, supports innovation. Can you like send me the source for that? I just want to, read that quickly.
Oh, how diversity benefits innovation?
Yeah, I was like sort of confused about that. I was like, wow. But like, can you send me it? I just want to read it, like, real quick, if I can at this time.
Well, I'll send it to you, but I mean, I more or less just would like to know why you think the country should be majority white.
I think, I'm personally not sure. I'm personally not sure about.
Wait, buddy, come on. You can't say that you want the country to be majority white, but you don't know why. What's the reason for it? Do you just kind of find black people to be a little uncomfortable? Did they kind of make you uncomfortable? Like, what? There has to be a reason.
I think it's because like it seemed to me America has been like better being majority white. It just seemed to me
Like
like,
when?
but as soon as like when personally, I don't know. I need to research this topic more. I know.
Yeah, but
Thank
hold
you.
on. You can't wait. You cannot say that you want the country to be majority white, but then you have no actual reason as to why you want that. Not to mention, what would happen if suddenly the country became 70% black people? Are we going to have forced deportation of minority groups? How would you go about actually handling that?
I personally don't know. I don't know if the country was 70% black. I don't know when that would be. So
But okay,
don't.
that's yeah, I appreciate your honesty to say that you don't know. That's still better than like bullshitting an answer. But I also don't appreciate you saying that you want the country to be majority white or stay that way, which is a textbook white nationalist talking point. And then when I ask why, you don't even know.
Yeah.
You really don't have a single reason as to why you would want the country to stay white.
Actually,
Uh-huh.
I personally don't know. So
Okay,
yeah.
well, I think we should probably just end the convo here. Hopefully I gave you some stuff to think about, man, but my word of advice would be don't advocate for things that you don't even know why you're advocating for them. I know you're only 15. I don't know what kind of friends you're around. I'm not accusing you of anything, but I know it's possible to be kind of pressured by other friends who hold these beliefs to sort of go along with it. But that's not a good idea. That's not a good way to form political positions. And if you're going to go that direction, if you're going to go the fucking white nationalist approach, then you should at least have an explanation as to why you hold these beliefs.
Okay.
All right, well, have a good rest of your day, and if you want to talk again, we can, but just, yeah, really think through your stuff, man. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you get notified when I drop a new video.